Now we're live. I don't know if we were live before. We might have been unalive. I don't know. Can you change it to live chat? Hello, everybody. Sí, ahora, Dan. We're all the way back to the beginning. Mark was here first. I don't know if he's here now.
Yeah, Mark. Stephen Andrews, second channel.
Stephen Andrews has been popping in. Yes, both of them.
Trying to swear in Spanish.
Both of his personalities.
Wait.
Who else we got? Danny Boyd, I know is here.
Right. Faith Bernard.
Faith just popped in. Hello, Faith.
Buddy Carofano.
Hello, buddy. Hey, Mark is here. How nice. A minute early. And Buff's not here to see his favorite car. Aw. You can see it later. This one's actually pretty nice.
Paul P. Joey.
Hello, Paul.
Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that.
How to use the Spanish pronunciation. Okay, Hui. Mm-hmm. Hello, everybody. Even though the title says today is March 3rd, it's not. I'll change that later. It's March 7th. So.
Chris is here.
Hello, Chris.
Yeah.
You're right, Dan. The wheel goes all the way to the back bumper, but that's a small car. That's how they are. They're little kick around cars. So, are you gonna read the messages, or am I gonna?
Chris says is that a Ford car?
Yes, it is a Ford car. And before you answer, no, we don't have the super car here.
Dan says those wheels covers are supposed to look like our aluminum mags.
They're probably AutoZone specials just because they wanted to cover the steel wheels, but there's ways to dress up the steel wheels to make them look decent. And of course, this car that's on the screen is called a Chevy Monza. Little four-door sedan. Most of them were stick shifts. It's in the Chevy Corsa line.
Dan says I parked my car in Harvard garage. Harvard?
He's making fun of people in Boston that talk like they talk.
Okay.
I parked my car in my garage.
Paul says I've seen similar models in Aruba.
Yeah, they've used the Corsa all over the world. A lot of people in Europe know what it is.
Uno's here.
Hello, Uno.
And they said that's a caca, not a super car.
However you want to call it. Uno, I bet you never guessed what Mrs. Spec had for lunch yesterday.
It wasn't churros.
No, it was not churros. Definitely not, because I wouldn't know where to go get them. Will you stop playing with the cat?
No, it's my cat.
Let him go to sleep.
Dan says pizza.
No, we don't do pizza.
I do love pizza. Princess Esquites. That's not lunch, darling.
No, that's actually nothing.
It's a
what does Uno always come in here saying? He always comes in here saying a certain thing.
Dan says empanadas.
No, where do you get those?
Empanadas?
Mm-hmm.
Well, empanadas here are sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they're styled differently.
Uno got a small part of it. Spelled it wrong, but
And uno says churros and taco barria.
barrio, like
Barrio.
barrio.
Believe in yourself is here.
Hello, Believe. Thanks for joining us.
Paul says, Bobby's probably taking a nap. Oh, I wish I was.
Probably. We have a lot of work to do tonight, moving a lot of branches.
Yeah. Believe says, what do you call a middle-aged dinosaur with joint problems? My knees are sorrows.
My knees are sore. My knees are sore.
Mm. Uno says empanadas or them bananas.
Well, tell him what you had.
I had quesadillas. I wish I wasn't sick when I had them because I wanted it would taste better, but they were pretty good.
You're not really sick. You just don't feel well.
I don't feel well. But they were really good. Lester Lefevor's here.
Hello, Lester. Will you just take a nap?
No,
Nobody's here to pet you right now. We're working. Believe in yourself. If you are paranoid, don't become an Uber driver. All those people talking behind your back. And they're also backseat drivers. Queso birria.
Queso.
Yeah. Right, Uno. Go to sleep. Go to sleep.
Love it.
No.
I'll go to sleep with him.
You pay attention to this.
No quiero. And it says, how many cervezas did you have? None. I had Jamaica. I had Jamaica.
You still have it here.
What is the Jamaica? Hibiscus?
Yep.
I had hibiscus water. Then says, los gatos son narcisos. Maybe.
Until he gets bopped on the head and he leaves.
Lou says, what did the brain say to the bladder when it started leaking? You're in trouble.
Both correct on 2 accounts. See how pretty this color is?
Mm-hmm.
The interior lets it down though, like I've told a few people. Just your basic vinyl interior. It could look so much nicer inside. And people are telling me it's not a Fairlane 500, it's a custom 300 with Fairlane 500 trim on it. Ugh.
Ben says nice looking 57.
A very nice looking 57 all the way around. But the interior, like I said, when it gets to the shots of the interior, it just looks really cheap.
Uno says, did you find any chicle yet? I haven't been looking for it because I've been having a lot of expenses and other things. So I haven't been looking to buy anything extra. Paul says 957. Polycarpara says, it'd be worse if you drove a hearse and people talk behind your back. Fair.
I have stories, buddy. I have stories about that. Not in a hearse because they're locked in the box, but in a first call car, you never know what happens. Yes, Dan, Mexico does interiors. I mean, they got the lines right, the blue lines with the white, the back matches the seat, but it just looks cheap. It could have fabric inserts. I don't like the blue piping on the seat. It just looks cheap to me. I mean, it could be fixed really easily, but the door panels match the seats, but it's a different blue than the dashboard and the outside, so it doesn't really match. I mean, you could get vinyl that has sparkly in it, like it's like it would be paint. I've seen that in hot rods, and you can put that in there to match the exact blue on the outside. That would look good. But I don't know. It just looks cheap to me compared to what the outside looks like and the effort they put into the outside.
Paul says, my friend has a custom. Dan says, Mexico does interiors. Uno says, painted slot mags with custom dog dishes.
Yeah, they're bolted on because the dog dish does not go with that wheel, so they just bolt it on. It looks good from a distance. It's actually covering the slots.
Then says and slot with 6 holes. The interior isn't bad. I prefer vinyl or leather. Patrick is here.
Hello, Patrick Sullivan.
Dopa's Braden is here.
Hello, Braden.
Patrick says hi. Braden says hi. Olivia says, "Why did the belt get arrested? It held up a pair of pants."
Are these new ones? Did you look for other ones just for today? Believe
Braden says, "I'm gonna be watching Wisconsin and Purdue
Purdue.
in basketball."
Well, I predict somebody's gonna put the ball in the hoop on one side or the other.
Okay.
I'll bet you money on it.
Lester says, "Interior looks 1950s style?" Question mark.
It just looks cheap to me. I don't even know if they would have done that in the 50s. Maybe if you replace the blue piping with white piping, maybe. I don't know. There's just something about it.
It's here.
Hello, Pit Snipe.
They say hello. How's stuff?
Stuff is good.
Blue says, "I found a new source." Yes.
Oh, okay. Why don't you do this in Steve Leto's lives?
Are you kicking him out?
No, I just want to know why he doesn't do this in Steve's lives.
And then says, "There are wheel weights on the hubcaps."
In the center, that's a bolt that's holding it on. Is that what you're talking about? It's the bolt. They're bolted onto the hubs somehow.
Paul says, "Any engine pics?"
No, he didn't. There weren't any engine pictures. There's a video. We can't play a video here, but there's a video. He gave me two videos one video that's a walk around that shows the engine. It's an FE engine. It's a 292, and the interior and inside the trunk, because that's what I asked him for. But the car is in a place where I would have to drive it back. There's no transportation from that area in the middle of the country, so I would have to drive it back. So I was looking very closely at the tires. The tires have a date of the 27th week of 2021, so maybe they're still good. You know, they're 4.5 years old, so maybe they're still good. The car has not gotten used very much.
Snap says, "What the hell? I missed it then." Lol. Believe says, "Sometimes I do." Dan says, "To Pit Snipe when he showed the close up of the hubcap." Dan says, "These are my least favorite Falcons."
The 68? Nothing wrong with the 68 Falcon. It's got the perfect steering wheel, horn pad, got the perfect side marker lights, the good tail lights.
Una says, "No, they were painted metal weights looking blocks on the rim of the hubcap, not the wheel."
I didn't notice that. I'll have to go back and look at the pictures. But I haven't had anybody that's interested in the car. Just people telling me because the side trim is taller on this one, because the trim that comes from the rear of the car starts curving down later and at a more aggressive curve. That means the side trim was taller than the US cars, because I compared them on Google. He says, well, maybe that somebody put that on there and it's a 300 and it's not a Fairlane 500, but he's not taking into account that the car was built in Mexico and not the US. So I don't know. I guess I'll ask the owner of the car to tell me what it's actually on the original invoice from 1957, how they describe the car.
Then says, "They're in the wheels too, large stick-on weights." Off the campus here.
Hello, Buff. You missed the first car that was on here, which was a really nice 2000 watt Ford Ka in red. No, that's okay. If he's here at the end, it'll circle back by itself. It's hard to find a nice first year Ford Ka, but that one has the nice original interior, nice paint, everything for still not a whole lot of money.
This says, "I just looked, reflection of the stick-on weights on the rim itself." Then
that's probably it, because who would put weights on a wheel cover? On a hubcap. because they don't balance the wheel with the hubcap on there. So yeah, Dan, it doesn't make any sense. I tried to put a different. I went through the years, started with the newer ones and went down to like the mid '70s, saving pictures. So hopefully, move the. So hopefully, there's a variety in here. Yeah, Buffman wants the replay. He has the power.
Dan says, but I did pass my driver's license vision test Wednesday. It's not
How much did you pay them to pass you?
rude. Marcelo says, does that Mexican Beetle have the correct lights?
In the rear, yes. In the front, no. They should have the turn signals on top of the fender for 1973. 1974, they brought them down into the bumper. So somebody probably put newer fenders on there. Or maybe they just didn't want the signals on the top of the fender. They wanted to make it look newer at some point in its life. I don't know why anybody would want to do that. It does need an interior detail, complete interior detail, because that does not look good. Why people take pictures like this, I don't know.
Cesar says, nah, then it really did look like weight on the hub. Mark says, okay. Uno says, optical illusion got me too.
It's weird how people hold cameras and what you can see, and it's not AI. It's a real picture. It's a real car.
Dan says, my eyes are old. Pesam says, mine too.
You know, I don't know if you. I just realized that the front seats in this Beetle are black cloth, and the rear seats are white vinyl. So it would need an interior kit to match it up. I didn't realize that. The outside looks good. The wheel covers are weird because again they look bigger than they should be, and they don't really fit, and they don't say Volkswagen on them. So who knows where they came from?
Shannon 78 Montes here.
Hello, Shannon. Thanks for joining us.
Is it how's it going?
It is going.
Mark says, here in Canada, the 73 Beetle had much larger taillights.
No, they didn't go to that till '74 here. And if you look at the lights that were used in Canada and the U.S. and the Mexican lights, they are different because you guys in the U.S. had the two squares for the marker light and the brake light, compared to us that had horizontal lines that were the marker light and the brake light. So they didn't use the same base and the same lens. Why? I don't know. Just to be different, I guess.
Chris says to Mark Sobe, same here. 73 was the first year of the elephant foot taillights.
About what they are.
Uno says, what's the cheapest Volkswagen Beetles? Is it by year or condition? How much is a Mexican driving project bug, or is that not a thing down there?
There's a lot of them here that need a lot of work, but if you have to pay the money for the travel and the transport, you might as well get a good one anyway. People don't give away cars here. You're not going to find one that's, like 4,000 pesos. You're not going to find a $200 car here. There's nothing like that. The worst ones are probably like 15,000 pesos, 20,000 pesos, something like that.
Mark says to Chris, 10-4. Chris says to Uno, the newer the Beetle, the cheaper they are. Super Beetles are the least collectible.
Yeah, over there. I think he's asking about the ones here, Chris. I think the way to go about it is choose the Beetle from your year, the year you were born, if you're not too old, because those get really expensive. Because from 1974 up until 2003, it's basically the same car with the exception of fuel injection in '93 and front disc brakes in '95. Other than that, it's the same car. So pick the one from the year of your birth. Better that way.
Prisoner says, I got parts to scrub. Dang it, I leave you running too. Though, Spec. I'll chat all you later. or tomorrow night.
Okay, Pit Snipe. Thanks for leaving us on. We'll be here tomorrow night vertically. We'll see if we can get some new people in.
Uno says 73 bucks in Canada has the elephant foot taillights.
Yep, but not here.
Mark says the Uno also correct. Uno says find me some of those horizontal bug lights and you can have all the maple syrup you can eat.
The problem is I can't send it to you. I can't send them to you. And we would have to find some original Hella lights because the reproductions that my supplier makes, I had some here because I bought a whole bunch of Volkswagen things, thinking there's so many of them, people will buy them from me. Nope, nobody buys Volkswagen stuff. I tried to mate the lens to the base, and the screw holes don't line up; they break off. So I would have to find some original Hella taillights and then send those to you so you know they're in good condition.
Slimo's here.
Hello, Slimo. Very wrong year, Slimo. That was a 78 model. See, I'm putting the year up on the first, telling you what it is. Did you notice that?
No.
That I put the year and make and model on the first picture of each car.
Some says Chris Wold Station Wagon. Uno says, do you still have junkyards or where do you find parts? Could you find project cars to build or are they all gone now?
You could probably find, you can't buy anything out of a junkyard because they won't have paperwork and there's no way to get paperwork here. You can find, the only way you can find parts is to go to Facebook Marketplace and people part out cars. That's the way I found the part for my customer's Ram Charger, and that's the only way you can do it. You send them money and cross your fingers they send you the part. That's about the best you can do because there's no old cars in junkyards around here.
Dan says, nice dual snorkel. Rather see the dark blue on this thin on the thin though. Thin?
Tins. What are tins?
Oh.
This is a very nice. If you had this car, this Royal Monaco in Mexico when it was new, you were definitely the man. The fully loaded, luxurious, big engine, automatic, two-door car. You were the guy. You were the one guy in town.
Uno says, I've owned 61, 63, 65, 66, 67, 69 Beetles, 71, and 72 Supers. Just like adding weird parts to my cars.
Well, the 68 Beetle here has the old 66 taillights on them. So they look different from the US and the Canadian cars. They didn't really get to the, hey, you're the taillights, it'll be safer if you put the bigger taillights on it. Mexico didn't care. They used those bigger taillights before they got to the what you call elephant foot taillights. They used that for 2 or 3 years and then they went to the bigger ones. But 68, I think even 69 has the small taillights from 1966, 67.
Mark says, for the campo, I will send you a picture of Prince Ranchero. Dan says, tins equals air filter assembly and valve cover.
Oh, okay. Ow.
Chris says the Uno 67 Beetles are valuable. A lot of people like them because they are 12 volt, yet retain an old body bumper.
I'm going to have to see what year they went to 12 volt here in Mexico. I'm not even sure about that. But I think I posted a 68 model Beetle that's you still had to open the hood to put gasoline in it. They didn't yet put it in the side of the car. So it's a newer car, but you still have the older look on it.
Dan says US never got amber on the smaller lenses, if I recall
No,
correctly.
and most of Mexico didn't either, but people change it over the years because my supplier sells those lenses both with the red and the amber turn signal.
You can't have it, it's mine.
You're right, Dan. No lean burn in Mexico. It's a 360, 300 horsepower. It'll move that car really well.
chat is slower than yours.
Hmm?
My chat is slower than yours. So I was wondering what you were talking about
Why?
because I didn't saw that message until now.
Oh, everything's slower with YouTube these days. Took me 45 minutes yesterday to upload, or the day before to upload a 3-minute video.
You
It's
jinxed
crazy.
me
Why?
because last night I was trying to upload the video to do the thing, and I just couldn't. I couldn't. I restarted my computer like 5, 6, 7 times.
It's
I just
not the
couldn't.
computer.
No, it's but I was trying to upload the images from the one folder to another so I could have it on a video, and I just couldn't, and it wouldn't let me. I mean, it would like do it, but it was so slow. It was like 30 minutes, 6%, 6%
Yeah.
in 30 minutes.
Maybe it's our internet.
No, it wasn't on the internet. It was from one file to the other, But what I ended up doing is I ended up because it's 500, almost 600 images. So I ended up cutting them 30 at a time and pasting them, and it will do it immediately. So
Well,
I don't know what's going on.
I don't know, but Uno says something.
Right. Una says, do you have network of people or places for cars and parts, or is it everything a secret?
For cars, I go to Facebook Marketplace. I look all over the country, with the exception of far south or the Yucatan Peninsula, because there's no way to get vehicles from there, and I wouldn't want to go there anyway. I try to stay away from areas that have salt, like we do here, like near the ocean. Stay in the middle of the country and where the transport company works. As for parts, it depends on the car. If I like for the Ram Charger, I went and looked for people parting out 99 to 2001 Ram Chargers, and I asked them if they had the part. And this one guy answered me, and I bought the part from him. And he also has the red Ram Charger that I had up here, and I posted before for sale. The rare one that's a midline SLT with the third seat in the back. He owns that he's selling too, and it's a very good price for that truck. And so yeah, it depends on the vehicle. We don't have anything. I don't get anything local here because we don't have anything local here.
Braden says, love the car. The car I get, it's going to be a while because I get SSDI coming in for money. But what should my first real car that gets good gas mileage and has power for under 7 or 8 grand?
That depends how handy you are with a wrench.
Why did everything went dark?
Because there's clouds going over the sun out there, back and forth, back and forth. You need something that has a really good heater and it's front wheel drive, Braden.
Braden is for the Wisconsin weather.
I don't know what kind of car that would be. Everybody else that lives in the snow could give you a better idea about that.
Uno says, I guess it was more like 90% of a 67. The floor and 2 inches above was missing.
A little bit of rust.
Shannon says, Round Charger with manual was first truck I learned to drive, was our plow truck.
That must have been an old Ram Charger, Shannon. Late 70s, maybe.
Daniel Morris is here.
Hello, Daniel. Thanks for joining us. I know the Ram Charger, there's a really, really nice 2000 model Ram Charger with a 5.2 in it, 4-speed manual here. It's got 112,000 kilometers on it. Black, gray cloth seats. I mean, it looks brand new inside and out. Really shiny black paint and everything. Really good price. Somebody that wants a manual Ram Charger really should grab it. I'm going to be posting it at some point. But it's a really nice truck. Very few of the manuals were made. And they seem to sell because they are more rare. You don't have power windows. You're lucky to get air conditioning. I saw one that at one time, complete base model, had no air conditioning, had nothing, but it was a manual. Somebody ordered it that way. I mean, you got to have at least air conditioning in it. You're not going to have air conditioning front and rear like the SLTs, but you do have air conditioning in the front. We didn't even use the rear air, did we? On the whole trip down to Veracruz. Didn't even pay attention because there was nobody in the back seat. Not that it would matter anyway. Even if my son was back there on the trip, I wouldn't have put it on.
I think it's cold enough with the front air.
Yeah, I think the reason they did it was because the seats are really high back buckets, and then you have where the vents are in the dash. There's no real center vents to be sending them to the back seat like they did in some of the older cars. What?
It's not a mosquito.
I don't have the zapper with me. 1982 Ford B200 Carryall. Yeah, I should probably turn the light on and get the zapper. If you, I think I got him. You hear a zap? It's a mosquito going to Valhalla.
I don't think he'll go to Valhalla.
Well, I don't want to say it any differently on YouTube. If that fly comes near me, he's gonna get it too.
How did you sleep last night?
I slept.
Oh, I'm glad.
So what I'm doing on the prices these days, like this one obviously doesn't need tires. But if it does need tires, I'm adding that into the price. I'm not going to ask the customer, hey, do you want a new set of tires? Because I have to drive the thing cross country. Got it.
You flying?
No, it was a mosquito.
Oh.
So just hit my leg. So I'm adding it in. If it needs new license plates, I'm adding that in, and that's the price the customer is going to pay. Just so everything is already included. And I put it, you can see it on my website. The ones that are coming with new tires will say they're coming with new tires. So,
Sorry. No, says we have something called a Canadian standard, and the later the Canadian custom. It had the smaller 120, no,
1200.
1200, and then 1300. Half a headliner, no chrome, half a rubber mat, deluxe bumpers, and gas heater.
Is that a Volkswagen Beetle you're talking about, Uno?
Braden says, I'm thinking of getting a 2012 or 2011 Ford Fusion. They hold up and have good gas mileage, or I was thinking of a hybrid for 71 miles per gallon. Uh, some get, some get. I like the Toyota Prius.
Everybody goes for the Prius with a hybrid. It's the most dependable and the most rebuildable.
Braden says, I know I'm gonna get hate for liking the Toyota Prius, but we are 71 miles per gallon, and some of them get, and most of them, hold on, and most of the time they're electric but still use gas. I like that. I can go wherever I want.
It depends how you drive it. If you're going to be racing it all over the place, which I'm going to guess you probably are, you're not going to get that.
Chris says, I like that combi.
It is clean. I like when they give you the shot down the side like this, so you can see there's no waves, there's no ripples, nothing. It's just straight. The paint shop over here is redoing a combi like this in white, and I took a picture of it how they had it when I was there, so I want to see what it looks like when they're done with it. I want to see how good they are with those because we get a lot of those that need paint.
Brandon says, if you had to pick a hybrid vehicle, everybody, what hybrid vehicle would you choose for under 8 grand? Daniel Morrison says, that's a nice blue on that Volkswagen bus. Sorry. Una says, they were usually a combination of previous year parts, very sparse interiors, but all the colors were available. The wheel covers and vent windows were paint, and it had a dipstick for the gas tank. Dipstick.
Again, are you talking about a Volkswagen Beetle?
Daniel Morrison says, is that a grayish blue on the Volkswagen?
It looks like more of a sky blue to me, but this is obviously a van that was white before, and they put the blue on it to make it look better on the outside, but they didn't do any of the painting on the inside. So
Chris says, back in the day, Europe had three model Beetles, 1200, 1300, 1500, and the 1200 was a stripper model,
stripper.
not chrome trim, six bolt 100 1200 cc engine, super basic. Space Monarch, same height. Didn't I say height? Space Monarch?
Yes.
Space Monarch says I just ran a mile and a half.
That's number 3. Tell your buddies.
I just ran a mile and a half.
Why would you do that, Faith?
Nah, what? Brandon says, or I was thinking of an early 2002 Honda Accord.
That's a good body style.
Uno says
2003 was garbage, but 2002 was good.
Uno says, yes, 1950 to 63 builds, but afterwards dealerships organized and ordered dealers specials, which were, again, bare bones interiors and exteriors, but upgraded safety and small engines.
Well, that's weird because I think the engines were 1500s here, and then they went to the 1600s and stayed there through 2003. I don't think I've seen any smaller engines here, even in the earlier cars. The 1200 really is weird. But the most of them you're going to find is the 1600, and then the 1600 with the fuel injection. How do you guys like the year, make, and model on the first picture so you know what it is? I'm not going to put it on every picture. That's way too much work. But the first one, I can do it. The first gen Prius Uno doesn't look like a Prius. It looks just like a regular car. And you're not gonna find one with under 1 million miles on it.
First year Prius peanuts are cool and collectible. Brandon says, well, I had a 2002 Honda Accord. I took that thing off road. I took that thing everywhere. I did burn when I was with it. I did a lot. I drifted it around a tree. It was so red line hotted. My Honda Accord was puffing out white smoke out of the exhaust after I got done drifting it because it was so red line hot. And then all of a sudden I got done drifting.
I don't know why you would do that with a car, especially one that you actually paid for.
Chris says the make/model of the first pick is a good idea.
Thank you. I thought so too, because you guys are, what the hell is that thing? Why would they put newer taillights on there? That has to be changed.
Braden says center cop was right there, and then I pulled out, and the cop couldn't catch me for half a block, and then I pulled over. How old are you?
I'm not going to comment on that one. Not old enough.
Old enough to know better?
You don't wreck cars just to wreck cars. It's not what the car was made for. Somebody in that carry-all really likes stickers.
I was 18.
Now on this one, either that's the original color or somebody took this car apart and painted every part that color and put it back together. Either way, it's a good paint job. Because that engine compartment is really green. Same as the outside. These are hot hatches in the US, but nobody has closed a deal on one. I get people asking about them, but nobody's closing deals on them. It does look nice, Chris. I can't wait for you to read the comments.
I looked down and it was not there. And then I took a bite and it was like 5 messages. Not fair. Chris says, another handsome Volkswagen, you're tempting me, Max. Brandon says, and then over my mom's, there's a gravel road and a dirt road that's set up like a rally course, like legitimately. Dan says, my parents looked at Beetles in the mid 60s and were put off because the salesman was like, here, look, you can drive it over this curve. She ended up with a 63 Valiant.
Good choice.
Dan says, repaint. Uno says, when the, I suck at saying numbers, 1300?
Mm-hmm.
When the 1300 was new, the Canadian standard gave up the 1200, and when it moved to 1500, it used the 1300. When it grew to 16, why am I saying so many numbers? I'm not gonna say that. You read it. Braden
It's not
says,
up there.
huh? Why isn't it up there?
Because it passed.
Ah, Braden says, but it's a dead end dirt road. You got a couple hundred feet. Then there's a corner. Then you go a couple hundred feet. Then there's another corner. Then you go to a couple hundred feet, and then there's another corner. Dan says, looks like there might even been clear coated inside the engine bay. Steven Andrews says, hi, all. Don't know if this is reaching. Just finishing. Will be up to the house where I can hear soon. He's doing something.
We're still here. He's splitting wood.
Can you come over and do that here? Daniel Morris says, that's a nice color. Uno says, what's the Kermit Green, a Caribe or is that the smaller Polo Fox?
In those years, we only had the Caribe and the Atlantic. We didn't have any of those smaller models. Those were in Brazil. Oh, EFOG.
EFOG is here.
EFOG is here. Hello. See, those are new tires. I know that thing doesn't need new tires. Okay, I want everybody to look at this dart. I hate the way he tucked the bumpers. I know it's a he. I hate the way he tucked the bumpers. You tell me if you like that. Yeah, he put them way in because the bumpers stick out on the car. He tucked them way in. It just looks terrible to me. Front and rear.
Everyone give your opinion in the chat.
Yeah. What are the bumpers? The rear doesn't look so bad, but it still doesn't look right. Where's Mean Street Mopar to look at this?
Uno says, that band looks pretty solid. The original interior paint gives more value than repainting, at least to crazy Volkswagen people. What's that on the border price?
You're going to have to send me a message and then tell me which one it was.
What's that?
So I could look it up because these are not on my list to be sold.
EFOG says to Chris, heck yeah, finally a warm day. Went for a walk. No cars out yet though, too early, but it's on its way. Nice to know. Believe says, it gives me Buick vibes from the front.
It doesn't give me any vibes from the front. I just don't like the way it looks. It doesn't look right.
Daniel says, looks unfinished.
See, people say how horrible the bumpers are sticking out. That's the way they needed to be. That's the way we know the car looks like with those. This just does not look right. And it looks like he added the side marker and cornering light from a Chrysler LeBaron. And that doesn't go in on this thing either.
Believe says it also looks like it's been in an accident. Daniel says the bumpers look unfinished.
Well, the accident because it looks like it was pushed in and never came back out. Yeah. Nice interior though. I'd love to go cross country in those seats.
Brandon says my brother got the 40th anniversary 2024 Volkswagen Jetta for under 30,000 miles. I don't know how much he paid, but that thing is beautiful. I got the raised engine in it. I believe it's a GLI. EFOG is it? What is that car? What car is that?
EFOG. It's called a Dodge Dart here. It's called a Dodge Diplomat where you guys are.
Uno says it kind of looks Cadillac-ish. They're talk too much. A California housewife. Braden says my brother's got a turbo. Oh, because they're talked.
Mm-hmm.
My brother got a turbocharged GLI 40th anniversary Volkswagen Jetta with almost 300 horse. Chris says, EFOG, yeah, I fired up the buck today, but didn't take it up for a spin. Too soon.
Too soon.
EFOG says, Dodge?
Yes, Dodge Diplomat.
And it says, my brother's car hit under 30,000 miles when he bought it for 2024 GLI 40th anniversary. Efox says to Chris, heck yeah, I get it already. I get it ready. Efox says, I was thinking that looked like a diplomat, but the front was different.
Right, because they tucked the bumpers and it didn't look right. This is how it's supposed to look with them sticking out and the little panel between the taillight and the bumper and the extra panel in front. This is how it's supposed to look. So you're not supposed to see the turn signals touching the front bumper. It just doesn't look right like that. This one I think was a V8, if I remember correctly. A Diplomat V8 could be like a police car. Just saw a mosquito in front of the TV.
Sorry.
This one does look clean, but it's a 4-door, so it's not going to have not a lot of people are going to want it.
Timer says great looking car.
I want to get you, sucker.
Literally. Why is your... What? Hold on, it's moving.
You get your hands there, you're probably going to get hit with a zapper.
Me?
Yep.
Why?
Because wherever the mosquito goes is where I'm going to hit.
Oh.
Yeah, you fog, it could be a nice sleeper, keeping in mind it's a 300 horsepower 360 in there. Chris says, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Dodge have to call all sorts of cars a Dart? Yep, just about everything in the line was a Dart. Then it was a Dart K when it came out, when the front wheel drive cars came out. So yeah, everything on the lot was a Dart.
Pablo Campos says, were 5 miles per hour bumpers required in Mexico?
No, they weren't, but the parts that were needed to build these cars, because they never had smaller bumpers, is what they put on when they made the car. They didn't redesign anything because, we didn't have to have those bumpers, but they're good. Remember the older cars that had the the bars on the bumpers? That's basically what these bumpers took care of. Because if somebody taps the rear bumper, it just goes in and comes back out. It doesn't damage the tail light. So they always were thinking about damage before when they had those overrunners on the bumpers front and back to protect the lights and the body work.
Braden says, which Toyota car are they gonna stop making? There was one of them that they were gonna stop making one of their popular lines, like the Corolla or the Camry. I don't remember which one.
They're not gonna ever stop making the Corolla or the Camry. That's their bread and butter.
Faith says, what car did you y'all had when you were in high school?
The list is very long, Faith. I had tons of them.
Stop walking away with the microphone.
I need to get that mosquito.
Yeah, but it's my microphone.
Oh, if it's on me, it's mine.
That's why I took it off. No, it's not yours. Believe says to Faith. 1974 Plymouth Satellite 2-door. Braden says, I gotta ask this question. Did the Yamaha Banshee 350, didn't they come out of one of the Yamaha bikes over in Canada, but the street legal 350 two-stroke road legal bike wasn't allowed in the US?
I'm the wrong person to ask about motorcycles.
Chris says the Braden Toyota stopped making the Avalon.
But they're still making the Mirai. Did they replace the Avalon with something else, a more luxurious car, or do people have to go to Lexus for a car like that? I'm not a motorcycle guy, Braden, so I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
I have one of these cars sitting in front of my house, but it's all black with AMX stickers on it. This one says AMX on the back, but I don't think it's an AMX because it's an automatic. Nice looking interior though. It has air conditioning. Like I said, if I could specialize in these AMC type cars, I would do it.
It says Toyota Crown, its replacement.
They're selling the Toyota Crown in the US now. Seems weird. Does that have any seatbelts? I don't see any seatbelts. They're probably underneath the seat.
For instance, is there a Toyota Crown gonna be like the old Ford Crown Victoria? They're gonna try to copy them?
No, Braden. Toyota has had a Toyota Crown in Japan for decades. That's their name. It's the top of the line luxury car for the executive. Hey, we don't have one of those. The back of ours. Fire extinguisher.
It's from the Durango, but it's too old. I don't think it's good anymore.
Oh, I'm talking about in that car. See, they don't have anywhere to put the spare tire either. They just throw it in the back because there's no actual room for it. There's no place for it.
Not anymore. It says it's nice upholstery.
Somebody did some work in it. Ours has really nice upholstery too in it. I hope it stays that way. I should put some covers in there so the sun doesn't destroy it. But it needs some AMC specific parts that we have to go find because the passenger seat, Mrs. Spec's seat, folds forward. There's no way to keep it back. So when you get out of the car, the seat hits the dashboard. So there's all these little tiny parts that we need to find for this car to make it a little bit better. Like a tilt steering column we have to put back in there because the other one was damaged. And of course headlights, regular headlights. I have to redo the wiring because some idiot put LED headlights in there and melted the sockets. Ugh. Just people leave things alone. Got working headlights, just leave them. No reason to put LED headlights in the car. Yeah, it's got an air conditioning compressor right there, hanging off the side of the engine. 4.2 liter, I think. Could be a 4.6. The air cleaner's not on there. Well, this is the wagon, isn't it? Yeah.
We sent an email about the guy that was requesting the over 300-mile trip. What?
These people don't know what you're talking about.
Doesn't matter. I'm talking to you. So we sent an email about that guy to the boss. We're waiting for an answer.
Look, somebody put LED headlights in this one. First thing that has to be changed.
Oh, there's connects right there if you need them.
That's the small box.
Yeah, but they would still have them.
Did everybody go away?
No.
Did everybody leave?
No.
Says we have 20 here. Maybe one day these AMC cars will be worth something. Then I'll corner the market on them because they're excellent driving cars. They get good gas mileage. You can do anything you want to in them. I mean, they'll do anything for you. They'll drive on the highway. They'll drive around town.
Mark is here.
Good. That's one.
Oh, that was right. Hi, that fly's bothering me.
What fly?
That big ass fly that's flying all over. You haven't seen it? That fly. For instance, what is the most reliable SUV for the power and gas mileage and year that hold up their value? I like to try to stay away from SUVs, but like I do like the older Ford Edge and I like the Jeep Trackhawk.
Oh yeah, Trackhawk.
Go away. I did shower. The Lamar says I love station wagons.
And Lester's here.
Oh, that's here. Didn't I say hi to Lester? Chris says only bad thing about those old AMCs is sourcing parts.
That is not true because there's a guy in Kenosha, Wisconsin that has a ton of NOS parts. He has them all listed. You can buy from him.
Pablo Campos says I'm here eating tomatoes. Like
Tomatoes?
With salt? They're good with salt. Faith says, what year did y'all started driving?
You have to clarify that question because are you asking what year we got our driver's licenses or what year did we start driving on the street? They're two different answers.
Brian says, I like the 2019 Jeep Trackhawk with loud exhaust with 1,100 horsepower.
You don't have the budget for that. And they get stolen all the time anyway, so you don't want that.
Mark says to Braden, I can't answer that, but those two choices are not reliable. Jorge Campos says to answers to Faith. 1970, I was 16. Braden says I got my license when I was 16 and was driving when I was 16.
I started driving in 1982 when I got my permit. And then I got my license and the rest is history. My history. If that fly lands on the bed, he's mine.
Honestly, there's a fly land on me.
It's really hard to get a fly when they're flying around. My son is 20 years old. He'll be 21 this year, has no interest in getting a driver's license, driving a car, knowing anything about a car, getting into a car, nothing. He doesn't care. The first thing you do on this car is you replace the tires because they painted them.
Mm. They painted them?
Yeah, when they painted the rims, they got paint on the tire, so it looks terrible.
Oh. Brandon says, what motor does the Jeep Trackhawk have in it? Because I've seen some of those get up to 1,200 horsepower.
It has the Hellcat engine in it, which is around 700 horsepower, so I don't know where the 1,200 comes from. They all had 707 or 770 or something like that.
Daniel says, you said 1982 you received your license. I have to respect my elders.
That's right, Daniel, you do.
They says, that's awesome, I'm Brayden.
So 40 years I've been driving, over 40 years I've been driving.
Educate you, okay?
I got my Fury before I got my driver's license. I was 15 when I got the car. But it took me 7 months to get her running because I didn't know anything about cars. So I was in auto shop in high school, so I learned what I needed to know to get her running and get her moving, get her motivated.
Mechanics is here?
Mechanics, welcome.
It sounds like you say Mexicanics.
Mechanics. Mechanics. Yep.
And Brayden says, well, a modified Trackhawk engine with every bell and whistle you can do it to the motor. You can get them up to 1,200.
Totally not necessary.
Dr. Campos says, does your son like to walk or does he have a skateboard or bicycle?
He walks. He walks to school, walks home. If he goes somewhere in a car, he's sitting in the passenger seat of his mother's car. But like I had him in my Durango one time. We went down the street here and made a right turn, and it's a straight street with a divider, so it's like there's no oncoming traffic. So I put the pedal to the floor. It's got the 5.9 in it, and it plastered him against the seat. And he's like, I don't like adrenaline. I'm allergic to adrenaline. He didn't like it at all. The power. Now look at this Jeep. Look how nice this Renegado is. 1983 CJ7.
Chris says the first Hellcat had a 707 horsepower, but I think the final version of it was close to 1,000.
It was called the Demon. It was called the Demon, Chris, and it wasn't really a Not a lot of them were made, but the engines are no good, as Uncle Tony has told us.
And Morrissey says, now you're talking my language on the Jeep. She's sweet.
I wonder what Dennis Collins would pay for something like this. It is a pretty color. I don't know if the codes in Mexico would be the same, but it is a very pretty Jeep.
Faye says, a dirt bike my whole life. Lester says, I've been driving 55 years and I really feel old.
Just a little bit more than me, Lester. Not much.
Mosquito.
Where?
I don't know, it was right here. My eyes are focused.
I don't see anything moving.
Okay.
I told you, keep your hands out of the way.
Your zapper was going somewhere else and I had to point. How am I supposed to point without pointing?
Mechanics. If I move to Mexico, would it be Mexicanic or Gringa-canic? Gringa-canic, people would probably understand more.
Faces and four-wheeling my whole life too.
Like the restaurant in Mexico City, the Pinche Gringo. He does barbecue ribs.
And Morrison says both Jeeps are nice. Policar Francis, I had to stop driving 3 years ago due to medical problems. I miss it a lot.
I bet you do. I would be the same.
Faye says, what city should I move to, y'all?
Anyone that you have family in.
Steven Andrews says, you. Okay, hi, Mr. and Mrs. Spec. I can hear you now. Hi, y'all.
Oh, that good you can hear us. That's nice. Hello, Steven.
Dan says, I'm sorry, but Garfano, I hope you can get back to it. Go away.
Steven has 2 accounts here.
Yes. Facebook says, I love warm weather more than winter.
Be careful what you wish for, Faith. You move to a place like Phoenix, Arizona, and it gets up to 100, 125 degrees. It's a lot to deal with. Then if you go to Florida, it's humid heat, and that's even worse because you step out your door and you're immediately sopping wet. Your clothes are soaked with sweat. So it's a lot to deal with. I thought this was a really nice van. Has the nice seats inside. It's the conversion. Nice paint on the outside. Very nice. Seats need a little work there. They're kind of crooked. But there's a bed in the back, and that's what's important.
Bob the Campos says to Faith, move where the best job is, and you can afford to live. Down says John Wilburn van.
Yep. This one's prettier, though. This has nicer colors on it. This one really stands out. Hey, Stray Bullet. We can see you. Hello.
Hello.
This van is the perfect one to just drive across the country. It's got a stereo, it's got lights, it's got seats, it's got a bed. What more do you need? And it's a Mopar. It's imported. It's not a Mexican vehicle because we didn't have them here. But it is the long wheelbase, just like John has. And you gotta love those wheels. Somebody did this van right. Really nice. Nice coloring. Most conversion vans were beat into the ground, and you don't want to try to put them back, but this one's nice.
Baker Francis, what's worse, heat or snow? Tough choice.
Snow. Snow limits your movement when it's out there, and it's dangerous to drive and everything else. So definitely snow.
Stray Bullet says, I tried to say hello on Sunday, but nobody could see my comments, I guess. I'm sorry.
Did you see him?
I don't remember.
You might have had it on Top Chat.
You think
we were outside in the dark.
we were dealing with a lot. I was dealing with a lot. Pablo Campos says to Faith, I chased work my entire life. I went all over, usually with a company helping with moving expenses.
Wherever they told you to go, you went, Buff. Land on the bed already.
Fernando says, love them same wheels. I put on that 86 pickup.
I don't know if I would keep those white walls, but look how nice even the roof is. The sun hasn't destroyed the silver paint. That's rare. Very rare.
Chris says heat. It's easier to warm yourself up than cool yourself down.
What?
What? You're saying you're yeah. I think you
You got that backwards.
Yeah.
But you have to think about practicality.
Trebula says the same happened on Thursday night on Bob's Live. He couldn't see my comments, I guess. Danny was says turbines rock.
Well, his live did crash, so he was having problems that night.
Trebula says it's just terrible. But Carafano says, does Mexico have daylight savings? Not anymore.
No, the whole country voted to not change the clocks anymore. So tonight, when the clocks change, I have to try to figure out when the Sunday lives are on and when we're going to be on. Because our time stays the same, but it's going to change for you guys. So our live is going to change for you guys.
My schedule is going to change because of work. I work for a Californian company. For California client, but I was supposed to get my schedule a while back, and I haven't. I checked it last night, and it hadn't changed. I guess I just have to adjust 1 hour, but still, they might have switched it for whatever reason. They like to do that.
So is Tony's live going to be on at 7 o'clock for me? Or 5 o'clock for me? I have to figure it out. I think it's going to be 7 o'clock.
I think so. Steven says, but we had an 80 Plymouth Voyager. I love that van.
They're very good driving vans. I always liked in the 60s Ford cars, Chevy trucks, and Dodge vans.
Van says FDSD. I don't know what that is. Right, Grace says the clock changing really needs to stop. It's working its way out there. Like a lot of places are stopping.
Arizona doesn't change it.
Dan says we'll be 3 hours later now, I think.
Yes.
Steven Andrews says spring forward.
You notice on this Capri, it looks like a US car from the front, but there's no side marker lights on this car. On this one either, there's no side marker lights. They were not required in Mexico.
Cesar Salinas Garza is here.
Hello, Cesar.
Dan says, I love this car.
I have a question though, and I'm gonna have to figure this out when I go out looking at Mustangs. These came out of the factory with the Capri front end with the Capri tail lights, which were all red. Now this one, somebody put Mustang taillights on it that has an amber turn signal. Did they hook up the amber turn signal in the electrical system, or does it still flash only the red turn signal? Because they would have to change the electrical system for that.
Pablo Campos says to Chris, I strongly disagree, but of course I worked on a flight near Yuma, Arizona for 15 years. Usually it was 115 degrees to 125 out there, and I loved it.
The heat does not restrict your movement. You get in an air-conditioned car, or for us, just put the windows down, and you go. Snow will stop you from leaving your house.
Yeah.
And destroy your roof, too. Right, Mark?
Dan says, oh wow, never noticed the missing marker on those.
You got to look for the details on the Mexican cars, Dan, because the safety regulations in the U.S. did not transfer to Mexico, so that's how they stamped out the fenders on the Mexican cars. There's no place for a side marker light. Or maybe it's the trim that just covers where the hole would be. The trim doesn't have the hole for the side marker light. Maybe it's that.
Chris says about the campo. I live up north. The winter weather doesn't bother me as much as extreme heat or humidity.
Well, that's just what you're used to, Chris, and what you have the thicker blood. If you move to a hotter climate after a while, you would be very comfortable in the heat.
Dan says just have to move the bulb socket to the amber lens.
No, that's not true, Dan, because then the amber lens will light up for your brake light. You don't want that.
Dan says, I know you'll use non-safety glass into the 70s or 80s.
I don't know about that. I'm going to stand here. You take this.
Thank you.
I'm going to stand over here, and if the fly lands on the bed, he's dead. Sorry, he's unalive. Maybe he flew out the door.
No. He wants my pancake.
Cat's outside, flies outside.
Bob the Campos says to Chris, I lived in NE, Ohio, Nebraska, Northeast Ohio, for 15 years prior to Arizona. Job fixing cars in the ice was miserable.
Yeah, your hands don't move.
Yeah.
You can't feel anything.
Stray says, I don't like it to be hot, too hot or too cold. I like the temperature to be just right.
In a perfect world, that's the way it would be, Stray Bullet.
Yeah.
We don't live in a perfect world. We have humid heat here, so we do go outside and sweat a lot.
Yeah.
But you wear an undershirt so you don't see it on your shirt, and so what? You sweat. Then you come home and you do whatever you need to do.
Will the drill is here?
Hello, Will. Thanks for joining us. We went a whole year. The Durango was down. We were driving the 63 Plymouth in the middle of summer, and we would go to the store when the sun went down a little bit. Didn't bother us. You don't go out in the middle of the day, and I mean, you don't put yourself in that.
That's why in Sonora and places still they close down in the middle of the
Yes, they always did that here too, but that has changed pretty much.
Yeah.
Stephen Andrews says, I don't believe we got notchback Capris. Nope. They were all hatchbacks, unless you're talking about the McLaren convertibles that were made. A kid at school brought one in one time, and everybody's like, "Ooh, ah, two-seater Capri convertible." Really not a convertible; it was more of a roadster. But no, they didn't make any Capri notchbacks, which makes the Mexican cars look that much more unique.
Bob the Campos says to Chris, in Arizona, high humidity was 11%. I understand miserable humidity from my years in Ohio.
I gotta say something about this carryall that's here. This truck was for sale probably 6-8 months ago for a really high price because it was really clean, low miles and all that. I published it and nobody wanted it, and then it was sold, and now it's for sale for a much lower price. So I'm guessing the person that bought it is now reselling it, but it doesn't look as clean as it was because they had cleaned the whole interior, prepared it for sale and everything. Now it needs a complete detail. But the thing that's holding it back is people don't like the tailgates on these, like the Bronco tailgate. People want the barn doors. So I'm gonna publish it again and see if anybody would want it, but it just doesn't look as clean as it did the last time.
Steven Andrews says only mad dogs and Englishmen go out in the noonday sun.
Yeah, well, the dogs have no choice here. They don't have homes.
Dan says 302.
Yes, Mexican 302. That's even better.
Bob the Campo says that's a good looking truck.
It is, and that gear shift lever you see is not the truck 4-speed with the granny gear. That is the car. That is the 4-speed that has car gears in it. So you don't have the granny gear. You get to shift through all 4 gears on that one. It probably has an overdrive, actually. I haven't gotten a close look at it, but it probably has an overdrive. So it's better on the highway than the older ones were. Here's another Caribe. A gray one.
then, oh, then says to Steven Andrews, you sound like Dean.
What, the Englishman comment? We don't have any neighborhood girls to give that thing to.
I know. I'm trying to. Jesus is the one that's supposed to get it.
Well, you never take it to him.
Yeah,
Who's he going to give it to? A sister?
his niece. Niece? Niece. He has a baby niece.
Oh, well, they can't give that to a baby.
No, it's not that much of a baby. But he's the only,
Little girl.
yeah, that I know. Triple says, those overdrive transmissions were great back then.
It gives you a little bit of extra fuel mileage.
Fernando says, Mexican Trio is más macho.
Yep. Más fuerte.
Another appealing Volkswagen. Oh.
Gotta love that steering wheel.
Why do I get... Oh, hold on.
Gotta love that steering wheel. GT steering wheel. Got the red on the dash like the GTs too. But it isn't. I wonder if you took a Mexican Caribe to a Volkswagen show, would anybody even pay attention that it's not exactly like the US car, if they would know about it? I mean, if you DID it, take the license sticker off the windows and stuff like that. If you're not obvious about it, if they would know what it is.
Will Literal says, I love the 1980s Chrysler Super E.
That car is only 2 hours from me, and it's a really good price for such a clean car. The guy doesn't drive it right now. Those wheels that you see in the picture are on a station wagon that he's driving, but I would want to buy the car with those wheels back on, and the price includes a new set of tires. So yeah, it's a really good car for the price. Really hard to find something that cheap in a completely stock Super B.
Steven Andrews says, thank you, Dan. Triple says, hardly ever use the compound low on the other truck 4-speed.
I started off in second gear when I was driving them cross country. There was no reason to start off in the granny gear. It doesn't do anything for you. And I wasn't pulling any tree stumps out of the ground, so it wasn't really necessary.
You did that once.
Not with one of those.
No, with the Durango.
Well, the Durango has a low gear, a low range for the four-wheel drive, so it kind of gives you that. But yeah, you just start off in second, third, and fourth, and you have a 3-speed really in those trucks. And it did fine on the highway. When it's not like it was geared really high, so it wasn't straining the engine or anything.
Dan says Labdon 5 whole wheels.
They look odd to me on this car because I'm used to seeing them with stock wheels, but I guess they fill out the wheel wells pretty well. And that muffler is really close to the tire. I probably want to move that. I don't want my tire heating up from the exhaust. But the bubble back is a love or hate kind of thing. Every other company that brought out the homologated NASCAR type cars, people loved them. When Ford did it with the Mustang, with the Capri here, well, because they only did this rear end for racing, and no, people hated it. Obviously, you can put the regular hatchback hatch on it, put the tail lights and the bumper in it, and you've got a regular rear end again. It's just a couple of parts, so it's not a big deal. But you do get better visibility out of the back of this bubble back because the glass comes around the sides, so you can see a lot more out the back.
Dance's muffler is of a different car.
Maybe. You know how people are with exhaust systems. They'll take it to an exhaust shop and they'll just put on whatever happens to be there.
Steven Andrews says that only came on the Capri up here.
Yes, exactly. But notice on this car, Steven, that because it has the wider fender in the back, it has the front fender with the wider part, but the Mustang hood and grill. So they mixed all these parts in the Mexican factory for this car to come out. Now, obviously, that they had the Capri coupes, they had the parts to make it a Capri bubbleback, but they wanted the car purposely to not look like the U.S. car, and they didn't. They don't look like the U.S. cars at all.
Will the Trail says nice Mustang.
It is.
Dan says 184 RS 5.0 5 speed with 308 equal
To one.
to 1 gears.
That's basically this car, Dan, except you didn't have the strong 5.0 engine like is in this car. And you had smog, which this car does not have. That makes all the difference in power and everything else. But I'd love to see a completely US stock car next to a completely stock Mexican car of the same year and see who wins a race.
Will the Drill says, I always wondered the potential of the Mercury Capri if it continued on the Fox body platform after 1986.
I wonder what it would have looked like, because they made sure the ones before, the 79 to 86, look completely different, front and rear. So I wonder what they would have done in 87 for the front end and the rear end. They were probably thinking about that too around 82, 83, something like that, and said, we're not even gonna spend money on that. We'll just leave it on the Mustang. Because people that went to the Mercury dealer weren't looking for Capris, especially 4-cylinder Capris. It was they wanted luxury cars at the Lincoln Mercury dealer.
Mm. Dan says, sorry, I had a 175 horse HO. That car probably is not an HO. Check the firing order and we'll know for sure.
It doesn't have to be an HO. You got 200 horsepower out of the Mexican car, Dan. 205, I think, is what Dean told us on that engine, because there's no smog on the engine, and it's basically a 1968 302. They never lowered the compression in the engine. So you got around 200 horsepower compared to the 175 in the US car. I'm sure Dean will pop in sometime because I'm sure his ears are burning right about now.
Triple says that instrument cluster looks different than in America.
Well, that's because the speedometer goes up to 200 kilometers per hour.
Yeah.
It looks a bit different.
Dan says, I doubt that they put high output 5.0s in Mexican Mustangs.
They didn't need to because there was no low output. They were all the same, right around 200 horsepower. Gross, of course.
Lester says, special bubble front fenders with Mustang angle front. Wasn't the Capri front fender vertical at front?
Yes, but that's all the fenders are the same. All the fenders have the vertical cutoff. And then you have the front fascia that goes on there. So you could put the Mustang or you could put the Capri, either one, they both go on there. If you look at it, there's a pretty long fascia on the Capri that kind of sticks out. That then you have the inset headlights and you have the grill and the bumper that sticks out and all that.
Lester says, wait, I already said that. Dan says, but that's 200 gross horsepower on the Mexican 302, I'll bet. Dan says, HO is 175 net.
So we're going to have to ask Dean about this. He's the expert. Don't know how, but he's the expert. See, this little car here, I would drive this car.
Oh.
This little dart wagon with the 2.2 in it and a manual transmission.
Dan says the two engines are probably pretty close to equal anyway.
That's why I want to see a race between them.
Lester says, I see front cap.
Yeah, the front fascia, the front bumper that goes on, bolts to the fenders. The fenders are the same going back. I mean, the Capris, they're basically interchangeable, obviously, because Mexico built the cars the way they built them.
Does your water have ice?
Yes.
Chris says Aries Dart Wagon with a 5 speed. Yes, please.
We didn't use the Aries name, but yes, Dart Wagon. I'm not sure if it had a 4 or 5 speed in it though, because it was made in Mexico, so they had to use what was available here.
Bobby Carafano says be like going to Buick dealer in 1987, having a GNX and Park Avenue in the same showroom. Tribble says, I remember when the Fox Mustang was released. That 175 horsepower seemed like a lot.
It was compared to everything else that was around. Nobody was looking at horsepower. Everybody was looking at gas mileage.
Dan says, I didn't know they used the Dart name on the K cars.
Yes, it was a Dart K, Dart Ka.
Is that the car that I used to have? That my stepfather used to have?
I think so. The green one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we used to have one too, but it was an American. Was it a Dodge Air? It was a Plymouth Reliant with the wood on the side. We used it for the store. We saw it driving down the street. It had for sale sign on it, so we raced up on the girl that was driving it. Hey, how much do you want for the car? So she put us in touch, of course, with her husband. Hey, I don't know if you noticed. Sorry to get off track, but this carryall, the first one I have ever seen that's an actual 4 door, and they moved the gas tank to the back behind the rear wheel. So I'm going to publish this one and see if I can get a buyer on it. Kind of needs a bit of work, but it's an actual 4 door. Look at that. There's the 4 doors right there. And they moved the gas tank. It should be farther back towards the back of the truck, but it's not where that rear door is right there. The first 4 door I've ever seen that was made. Very weird. People are going to call it a Centurion. And I go like, nope. Of course it may be. I don't know. Centurion started in 1987 building 4 door Broncos, but that doesn't have a Bronco removable roof. So, are you paying attention?
No, I'm waiting for you to finish. Like Dan says to straight bullet, 1979 was the 140 net horsepower 302. 80 was the 81. 80 and 81 were 225s.
55.
255s. The 82 was the first HO. 157 net horsepower with a 2 barrel. 83 and 84 got the 4 barrel and 135 horsepower.
Well, keep going. The 85 got the fuel injection. What did it go up to then?
Leslie says, could they make the Ford lettering bigger?
I don't think so because the tailgate's only so big. They want you to know what it is.
Dan says 1985 got the roller cam and 215 horsepower.
Mm-hmm. We didn't have 85 Mustangs here, so that never came into it. Some people wanted luxury pickups, so this Hunter was made by Chevrolet. People that wanted to spend more money.
Some people call me Maurice.
Hmm?
Some people call me Maurice.
Stephen Andrews, Mexican K had 4 speed according to the brochure, at least through 85. Yeah, probably. I think even the US cars had 4 speeds. I remember the 4 speed in those when I saw them at the dealer auction. Buy them for $100, $200 and drive the thing for 10 years. You might notice the tailgate's different. The bed's different on this truck than the US trucks. It's much flatter in the back and has the center handle.
Dan says that's a crime against Mexico.
It is not.
What is?
The Hunter truck.
Oh.
It is as Mexican as you could get. No tilt wheel, no cruise control. That wasn't a thing in Mexico.
You smell like coffee.
That's not possible.
You smell like coffee.
Yes, Dan, but not many of them were sold. I saw, we bought I think it was a 2 door Dodge Aries, and I let a friend of ours drive it. Great gas mileage. It was like $100 car. It just in Vegas, no air conditioning, but it just kept going and going and going and going. And that's all you want out of a car. It just keeps going without having to put anything into it.
Dan says, are those Ford seats?
In what?
The one just
In the Hunter truck? No, those are the trucks that came in. Those are the seats that came in that truck in the beginning. Now this is a 4-speed Suburban. Those are nice trucks to drive. I think this is a very low mile truck. You can see how clean the whole thing is inside and out.
Triple says, I remember when they broke 200 horsepower. Dan, that really was something.
Yeah, and then it kept going up from there. Very, very clean truck, this thing. 4-speed, air conditioning. What more do you want out of a Suburban?
Mm.
Perfect for towing. I don't think it has rear air though.
That's the Wolverine garage is here.
Read his comment.
Had no fear, the doctor's here, working on my Ford 13 installing ARP rod bolts on a brake currently.
Hello, Doug.
Why did I have so much trouble
We
getting
have
the
no
one this
fear.
morning?
47,949 kilometers on this truck. Very few miles.
Dan says, I've had a 157, 175, and a 225 horse HO.
They all drive the same, Dan.
Doctor says, hello. Dan says, Doctor.
2-wheel drive Ram Charger, which they all were. Well, almost all of them were here. And I don't know if you noticed the pattern, but there's a lot of green cars in here. I just kept saving the green cars after I dark green on that Volkswagen Beetle. So the green cars kept coming up, so I saved them for today. I like the dark green on cars.
Can I interject?
What?
If we move our lives on Sunday to the afternoon, what time would you like to have them?
Ah, like 2:30. Because that's after Steve Leto, but before Tony. Because we have responsibilities on Sundays. And I still have to have time to clean the backyard.
Chevrolet says, I had a 150 horsepower Thunderbird turbo coupe.
That sounds very low for a turbo coupe.
Doctor says 90 Ram Charger is Doctor approved.
This is a nice one in that color. I love the dark green on this.
Yeah.
It looks good.
Dan says those 2.3 turbos would rip. Chevrolet says, I love that car though. The Thunderbird. Yes. And Doctor says it has a 91 to 93 from bumper.
How do you know that, Doug? Remember, we're in Mexico.
Dan says 5 hours between Steve and Tony tomorrow.
We don't. The time is changing, so Steve comes on at 11 o'clock my time.
But it changes tomorrow night.
And he's
not tonight.
It changes tonight.
Oh.
So Steve's on from 11 to 1 my time. Tony comes on before the time change. Tony comes on at 6 o'clock my time. So that's 5 hours. That's what he said. Okay, never mind, Dan.
You're so
I did the math. Hello, Dean.
Hey, Dean. Dan says also Steve kind of alluded that he might not go live tomorrow. Dean says like 14.5 kiwis. I haven't had kiwis in so long.
Let's keep it that way.
Shut up. I want kiwis.
No. I will not have kiwis in this house.
They're not that cheap though. That's the problem. And some people eat them with the
skin. Because they're imported.
Why would you eat them with the skin?
I wouldn't eat them with or without. I'm not going to talk about kiwis.
Kiwis are not a fruit that you should give other people to try because they're like a hit or miss kind of fruit.
The
You
word
should
is disgusting.
they should give you something else to try.
The word is disgusting.
They're
You
anyway.
guys get to decipher what this car is. 1982 Audi 100. It says A4 on the back of this car, but the owner's manual says what? 19. It says Audi 100. So I don't know what this car is.
Doctor says Rumex, but the front bumper has the plastic top that the US models was in the 1991 to 93.
Right. Well, it could have been hit in the front and replaced. I don't know. You never know in these things. You got to read faster.
Dean says hi. Dan says, Dean sir, what's the difference between a 1983 Mexican 302 and an US Spec 64HO 5.0?
I think he means 84.
Maybe. Buff de Campos says, kiwi fruit are good. Yeah.
That's an opinion, Buff.
Yeah, but
not one that I share.
Mr. Spec was attacked with one when he was younger, so he hates them.
Yeah, horrible taste.
Dean says, delete your kiwi, Dexter, some respect. Buff de Campos says, Chinese gooseberries. I haven't had them. I would like to try goji berries and
you already did, Dean. You already asked Dean.
Yeah. Stray Bullet says it's an expensive, unreliable Volkswagen.
Yes. It says V6 under the hood, so looks like dual overhead cam.
Dan says 84, I meant.
Yes. Figured that. They didn't have Mustangs in 64.
Stray Bullet says hi to Dean. I would like to try goji berries and the red dates. Red dates. But they're really expensive on this because they're imported. They're really expensive over here.
Dean, we want to know the difference between the Mexican 302 in the 83, 84 Mustang and the 84 Mustang high output. How much stronger is the Mexican engine?
Steven Andrew says, I eat the kiwi skins too. I'm weird, I know. I don't know if you can eat it. I've never tried. But then again, I live in a place where we eat what do you call them?
Cow brains.
No. The cactus fruit. I don't remember what you call the cactus fruit. They are pitayas, but they're like they're also called dragon fruit, but dragon fruit is a different species. But the cactus fruit has little like needles on them. So when I look at the kiwis, and it looks like the cactus fruit. So my brain tells me like you're not supposed to eat that because it looks like needles and it looks like it's gonna bite you. So I don't eat it. That says yogurt covered craisins for the win.
I warned you about the dark green cars, guys. This Ford Cougar is dark green. Looks good.
Dean Stevenson says the Mexican Spec engine was basically an 8.2 to 1 compression version of the 9.3 to 1 F code 1968 Spec versus M code 4-valve HO, the pistons heads. Doctor says my 84 Audi 4000s was only reliable because it had 3000 K on it. Everything that went wrong on it with it was just due to being worn out.
That's not true, Doug, because that was not a good car when it was new. The Audi 4000, not a good car at all.
Steven Anders says, I remember the 82 HO had 157 horsepower. Triple says, you got the only good one manufactured that year, Dexter.
Yep, it made it to 300,000. But how much money was put into it to get it there, or did the odometer break, like they always did?
That to Steven, I think they might be better than the chocolate covered ones. I'm gonna have to look for them.
There's craisins here, but not yogurt covered.
I think I've seen them before, but they're a bit expensive for my pocket. So
I'm not yawning, you're yawning.
Mr. Spec doesn't let me buy expensive snacks.
Let you?
Yes, let me. Allow me to buy expensive snacks.
You spend way too much on vegetables and fruits already.
Those are my lunches. I need lunch. What am I supposed to eat for lunch? I didn't put a chicken down. The chicken is spaghetti.
I can have spaghetti tonight.
Surrender says the U.S. Camaro only 145 in 82 dark times.
That was their first year, Steven, and when they had the bad engine in them. So we're gonna just erase 82, 83 from the consciousness. Chevy did better after that. I still am looking forward to driving one of these Thunderbird SCs with a 5-speed because I've never driven an SC car before.
Dan says vegetables are good.
Another opinion.
I'm surprised you don't have scurvy.
I eat the animals that eat the vegetables.
You don't eat enough intestines.
Stray Bullet, I'm talking about the Crossfire injection engine that they had in the 82, 83 Camaros. That was bad. You got to keep up with Dean. He's going to be doing this.
The messages were crazy. Stray Bullet says the 305 engine Camaros were terrible. Dean says Mexican 302 was 205 horsepower gross, which is 145 horsepower net. It's 2-barrel Mexican altitude compensation induction, 368 CFM. The 84 was same compression, 4-barrel, 480 no 4180C, 585 CFM carburetor, different head and block casting. Chris says, if you're eating vegetables, then you're eating the food that your food is supposed to eat.
Exactly.
Doctor says, my friend's older brother wanted a T-bird, this sporty style, and was hunting high and low for one, and the right price. He bought one used from a rental agency. Who would buy a sport car from a rental? Who would buy a sport car from a rental corporation?
Thunderbird's not a sports car. The Thunderbird is a personal luxury car.
Fernando says, yes, the Costco chocolate cover raisins are my nemesis. Dean says, both had similar positions, non-forged. Josh Homan is here.
Hello, Josh.
Hi, Josh. Chris says, hey, Josh. And Dan says, Dean Stevenson, that's why I suspected. And standard firing order on the Mexican versions, I presume. Doctor says, steak and broccoli with some Brussels sprouts with ham on the side. Oh, yeah. I never had Brussels sprouts.
I'll take the steak. That's about it.
You will have broccoli.
I will not.
Then you won't have
I won't even have broccoli in the house. It stinks.
There's broccoli right now.
Don't make it stink. It'll get thrown out.
Lester says, I heard of a proposal to move the time 0.5 hours, splitting the difference between standard and saving time and making it permanent. I bet Dean would approve.
That would just people wouldn't understand that, Lester.
No.
Not at all.
Josh says, good afternoon to one and all. Table says hi. Dan says, 2 Garton's fish fillet sandwiches, sandwich patties with tartar, pickles, onions, and cheese, plus spinach.
You're weird, Dan.
Dan says, fish sandwiches and spinach. Doctor says, Brussels sprouts are kind of like little cabbages, only way better. I will try. Dan says, nice Bonneville.
Yes, it is. Amazing. It's this clean. I think it has the supercharged engine. I think. And another one's coming up that also has a supercharged engine. That's here in Mexico. I have to wait to see if there's a engine pick. I can't remember if it has the supercharged engine or not. But if you're going to buy one, buy the best one. Can you tell if it's supercharged or not? It might be. I don't remember. Did it say it on the first picture? If it was supercharged or not?
Dan says to Doctor, can one make sauerkraut with them? Mm. Doctor says Pontiac, we build excitement.
They used to, yes. I love those wheels though, those the mesh wheels on all the cars.
Steven says leftover pizza from a 1776 bar and grill here. What?
Cold pizza is good.
From
Well,
1776?
that's the name of the bar. When I was able to eat it.
Oh, thank you. Doctor says good question, master. I don't know. Dan says until the Aztec, at that point they were building excitement. Excrement.
Excrement.
Strebler says no supercharger.
Well, it's still a nice car. The other one that I put on here, it's not a Bonneville, but the other one still. You got to buy it for the tires alone. Hankook.
Strebler says poncho.
Very clean car.
Doctor says I will always have a soft spot in my heart for a Pontiac.
Yep. I bought a new Pontiac in '87. I worked at a Chevy dealer, and so I bought a Pontiac. That was the way to go. Even though we owned a Pontiac dealer, I bought it at a different Pontiac dealer. I didn't even get in trouble.
Dean says yes, non-HO firing order. The standard output. The cam is the same as any F-code. The carburetor is GPD Ford 2-barrel carburetor. The 205 bhp gross at 4,600 RPM and 295 pounds per torque.
Pound feet of torque.
Pound feet of torque at 2,600 RPM. Then says 1968 Lemons is one of my favorite cars. Steve Stevenson says the cars were US 1972 emissions compliant in my opinion.
His something opinion.
Steven says, me too, doctor. Actually looking for a Pontiac V8 right now. Dan says,
This is oh no, this is still the Bonneville. How many freaking pictures did it have?
oh. Dan says, same 302 my old Cougar was supposed to have. VIN said F, but the air filter lid said 289 2B. Trevor says, would you get a better deal at the place you worked at, though?
No. With the Pontiac dealer that we had he was trying to sell it, so they weren't bringing in lots of cars. So I ended up with a base model Pontiac Sunbird SE with the stick shift, 5-speed. It had the little pop-up headlights and a two-door, of course. It was just like a Cavalier, but it had pop-up headlights. That's the one that I wanted.
Buddy Carfano says 67 Grand Prix, one of my favorite cars.
I had one of those, buddy, a green one. I've never liked the convertibles, though. It looks good with the fastback. I don't like the convertible 67 Grand Prix. Only year for a convertible. But that's the only thing you see for sale. Everybody has a Grand Prix convertible. No, no thanks.
Doctor says in Hastings, Missouri, Michigan, there was a Pontiac only dealer in town. Today, the old dealership is a custom car shop.
At least they kept it in the cars.
Dean says for 1967, there was a company union strike, so your 289 air cleaner would hide at 302 with a 302 block casting number. Doctor says, I love the 65 Grand Prix.
Yeah. Very nice car. In black. You cannot beat it in black. It's not something I would want because it would be impossible to keep it clean. But gorgeous in black. Especially at I like the 66 just a touch more because of the tail lights. Sorry, tail light that goes all the way across. The only reason I put this Explorer in here is because it's a 5-speed.
Doctor says, can't go wrong with a 389 Steven. Dan says my 1976 or 77, or my 16-year-old neighbor got an oh sorry in 1976 or 77, my 16-year-old neighbor got a 71 Le Mans Sport. It was burnt orange with a black vinyl top and honeycomb wheels. It also had buckets. A console had a 350 with dual exhaust.
And of course, being who I am, Dan, I had a 72 luxury Le Mans four-door with fender skirts that I drove back and forth from LA to Las Vegas. Very nice car. The paint was faded because it was a Vegas car, but I didn't care about that stuff. But I like the luxury part of it. More luxurious seats, your fender skirts, stuff like that. Does anybody know what this thing is? They didn't sell this in the U.S. I don't even know if it would have sold in the U.S.
Triple says that's the ugliest Mercedes that I have ever seen.
Really?
Chris says the Mercedes
Ugliest?
is making my eyes hurt. Silvando says we had a Pontiac 1966 Star Chief executive. Took us to Mexico in 1975.
That's good.
Dan says I remember a luxury Le Mans.
My '67 Pontiac is a was a high top, superior made ambulance, long wheelbase. Oh
Dean says a class Mercedes Benz.
yes, A class. And if it has the actual manual transmission, it's not a bad car. But the automatically shifting manual transmission could be a problem.
Double says what did they do? Of the Campos says 100 series Mercedes.
Well, it's an A class. That's what it's called.
Dean says 1.6 or 1.8 liter. Doctor says my dream 65 Grand Prix is emerald green with matching interior and birch wood interior kit. They had a real wood veneer too, with 8 lug wheels and 4-speed 421 tri-power or dual quad.
Does that car even exist, Doug? Did anybody make even one of them?
Dean says they withdrew it due to safety concerns and reintroduced it.
Mm.
Double says, has anyone ever owned a Mercedes?
Yes.
Anyone here ever
Yes,
owned a
Stray Bullet.
Mercedes?
1973 Mercedes 220D diesel, four-speed manual, dark blue. Um, I don't even know what color interior you call it. It's a dark brown. It's not a dark brown, but Mercedes has a special name for it. That car was great on the highway. If you want somebody to get out from behind you, you put your foot to the floor and you fill up the highway with diesel smoke. Great, great car.
Chris says, A class? I'd score that more like an F class.
Do they have an F class?
Josh Homan says, you get a real Mercedes Benz and they throw this in this toy.
They throw in this toy. Yeah. But people wanted cheap Mercedes, so that's what they made it for in Europe and in Mexico.
Surrender says, we only think of Mercedes as luxury cars in the USA, but they have a full range in Europe and Mexico apparently.
Yeah. In Germany, they're taxis. They're, professional cars.
Doctor says, yes, it makes. My friend owned one just like it, except it was a 389 four-barrel and otherwise exact car I described. Strebule says, that sounds miserable, Mexican. Bob the Campo says, I never owned a German car.
That's why your blood pressure isn't that high, Buff.
Dean says, sedan, and I were always an F class.
Stray, my Mercedes was a very comfortable car. If you ever get the chance to see a 73 Mercedes, it's not the big one, it was a smaller one. The doors closed like they were brand new because that's how the car was made. I'm not a Mercedes guy at all, and the car had a little damage in the left quarter panel where the taillight was, so I put a new lens on it. But other than that, it was a great driving highway car. Great driving car. And that's when diesel was less than gasoline, so it got really good fuel mileage out of a four-cylinder 2.2 liter diesel.
700 says, I drive a Mercedes van at work, but most people in US just think high dollars.
Yeah, everybody thinks Mercedes are high dollars until you get a used one, and $100,000 car becomes a $10,000 car in 10 years because nobody wants to fix it.
Dan says, I achieved many F's in school.
I can't say that I did, Dan. I graduated with all my credits.
Doctor says, I owned a few Mercedes diesels, a 77 240D and the 80 290D, not fast but great runners.
290D, was that an imported car, Doug? That doesn't look familiar to me. 1980 model was the body style that I liked. Of course, I bought the 73 because it was traded in at a Pontiac dealer, and I was buying used cars out of the back lot, and it was one. So I bought like 5 or 6 cars that day, and I kept the Mercedes because I just liked it so much, in dark blue. Perfect interior, of course, after however many years. The car was 25 years old or something, but interior was perfect, as they all are.
Doctor says diesel is usually $1 more than gas these days. When gasoline was 99 a gallon, diesel was 66 a gallon.
Right.
Rebel says, I remember when diesel was like 70 cents per gallon.
I could fill up the little car, drive to California, drive back home without putting diesel in it again. So it was not a problem. 500 miles easy on the tank.
Dan says, I graduated too. Folks wouldn't let me drop out.
Yeah, but if you got so many F's, how'd you graduate? You had to do the work? Did you do the work, Dan?
Doctor says both were W123 bodies.
I don't recognize the 290 though, that designation. There was a 300D, there was a 240D. I don't remember the 290 at all. And then there was the SDs, or the TDs, the turbo diesels. When you came to my high school, I graduated in '84, but the parents would pick up their kids in the Mercedes diesel station wagons. That was the preferred car for that kind of people to pick their kids up. Everybody had a Mercedes station wagon.
Steven Andrews says, I pick up parts of Mercedes Benz in Seattle, so I know the prices are high for parts.
Oh yeah.
Unfinished project this year?
Hey, unfinished project. Welcome.
Dan says, rarely did the work.
Same as me. I spent more time in auto shop. I had two classes in the morning, two classes of auto shop, and I left to go to work.
Doctor says 300. Sorry, 300D.
Yeah, 3. Okay, that makes more sense. But kind of confused me there, Doug.
Dan says, but I could read and write well and do basic math and geometry and a little algebra.
Algebra is not as hard as people make it out to be. Geometry was a different thing because you had to remember something from week 1 in week 40 and memorize the stuff and use it, and my memory is just not that good. So I dropped out of my geometry class, and they allowed me to be a teacher's assistant in the advanced class at auto shop. So I was learning more than anybody else there because I was listening to the class in the advanced class, because what the teacher would do was he would come in on Monday morning in the advanced class because he worked as a mechanic at Sears Auto Center, and he would tell the class, okay, here's a case that I had this weekend. Tell me how to fix it. And he would quiz everybody in the class, and that was really neat.
Steven Andrews says, diesel is currently $6.19 a gallon, and the Flying J truck stopped near my home.
That's absolutely crazy, Steven. It's more here too. It's more than gasoline here too, and people protest about it because all of the big buses and everything and trucks run on diesel.
So says that Mercedes station wagon was very popular back then.
Yeah, sure was, and very expensive.
Off the campus says stinky diesel wagons.
Mercedes was about the best you could get for a diesel engine.
Doctor says $4.35 for diesel in Michigan. Chris says algebra is easy, calculus not so much.
Yeah, but what do you use calculus for?
But Carafana says my mom drove me to school in green 72 Impala wagon.
I know about those Impala wagons.
Doctor says, Buff, call me weird, but I like the diesel stink.
Uh-huh. There's a 1976 Buick Estate wagon here, which is the same thing as the Impala wagon with the window and the door in the back, that horrible system. And I'm going to be publishing it at some point, but it looks like somebody took the wood grain that's on the side and they just covered it from, like, there's on that car, it's got a raised part of the hood and then the side of the hood goes down. They put the wood tape up on the hood, the lower part, and then down the side of the car and all the way down the side of the car. It's not supposed to have that much on there, but it is a 76 wagon and they're very hard to find these days. So I'm going to publish it and see if anybody wants one.
Dean says, hi UFP. Incidentally, F students can get concessions passes if they really suck. Chris says, back in college, we used calculus to design electronic circuits. Dean says, I cannot speak for Dan Iboito.
Okay, here we have a supercharged Grand Prix that is sitting in Mexico waiting for a new home. I think it needs taillights though. Hard to see in the pictures, but I think they're broken, which is very common for these. I rented these as rental cars, but never had the supercharged one, and they were great driving cars on the highway and stuff. These were great cars, these Grand Prix.
Dan says, some of them probably passed me just to get rid of me.
Probably didn't do you any benefit, but they got you out of there.
Doctor says, okay, back to work. Talk to everyone later. Doctor's out.
Adios, Duxter.
Bye, Doctor. Steven Andrews says, I love all diesel smell. New with the stupid thief. No? What?
Yeah.
Dances later.
After all these years, look how clean the driver's seat is. Isn't that amazing? Here we are back with number one. Buff, this is your car. How did you get 576 pictures only?
That's what it was.
No, I'd saved 600 and something and it was in the folder.
I don't tell me. We was messing up all over the place.
Weird. Everything is messing up. Buff's live went down. I don't know what happened with John last night. He says he dropped a lamp. So did that mean everything stopped, or did he just drop a lamp? I don't know. This is a nice one, Buff. Nice condition for a 2001 model. Even on the inside.
Josh, how much is toy car?
No, there's no leather interior in Ford Cause. No way.
Commander says, one of my earliest memories is the sound and smell of a Detroit diesel bus on River Road.
Buses did smell different than the cars. See, here I'm selling the car now. You see, Buff, the seats are in nice condition. They have the casino carpet on the seats, and they match the door panels, just as they should. The bumpers are supposed to be like that. They're not supposed to be the color of the body. They're supposed to be that color. See, it matches the door panel. That's the way it's supposed to be. And everything is round. Everything is circular in this car. And the best thing is no power windows to go bad. You have roll-up windows.
Dan says, flashlight landed on the computer keyboard, it looked like.
So how did that make everything go black?
It messed up something with the computer. Like it pressed the key or something. Dean says, yes, it activated the shotgun noise algorithm, which cuts off your live broadcast.
That doesn't make any sense.
Rafa says, the one I drove in England had gray leather seats.
Well, that's weird. Maybe there was a higher level, trim level there that they offered that, but there's nothing like that in Mexico.
Mark says we had a 99 Grand Prix with a 3.9 non-supercharged.
3.8.
3.9.
It's an 8.
It's a 9. It was a great car except for the rear shock towers rotting out. They fixed that in 2000 with inner fender liners. Percola says, I studied mid to late 70s motocross and trail bikes at high school, unofficially.
Hello, Barry. Welcome.
Body Carafano said, oh, but...
He just passes you by.
Well, he didn't say hi per se.
We're going to have to teach him some manners. You have to come in here and say hi to everybody, Barry.
He just starts with a message, so I read the message. Body Carafano says, too small of a car would not be in an accident. Would not to be in an accident. Chevrolet says it's been repainted.
All cars have been repainted, straight bullet. The cars are 25 years old.
Dean says, if there is a noise signature, it cuts off live broadcast. Your research is real and actual.
Never heard of it.
Mark says, sorry, 3.8.
You see, I'm always right.
No, I read 3.9. Surander says, it is a Chevy?
Yes, it's a Chevy Monza.
Mark says, typo. Surander says, hola, Barry. Barry says, hello, Christopher. Dean says, Hyper, could please leave your torch at the door.
They did these designs on the seats on these little import cars. Not import cars, but little small cars. To make them more interesting, I guess.
Thunderbird's here?
Hello, Thunderbird. We're about ready to get out of here.
See, Barracuda, that's how you come in.
Yes. You greet everybody, so we know that you just came in. Mrs. Spec is falling asleep as she's reading the comments, so you have to give her a tip off. 2003 Volkswagen Beetle. This is the last year. I saw a guy advertising just a regular 2003 Beetle. It had like 70,000 kilometers on it, and he's asking 300 and something thousand pesos for it because it's the last year, in quotes. Like, piss off, guy. It's just a regular Beetle, nothing special. It's not the last edition.
Trevor says, I wish that I could get my truck repainted. It only has 50k miles and it's starting to look terrible.
We'll save the money. The truck will wait.
Lester says, Dean, what is a noise signature?
Oscilloscope.
Oscilloscope wave pattern? Dan says, just gotta do a chili out to the frost for tomorrow. Ooh.
Tub. He puts his chili in a tub.
Thunderbird says, working on floor pans today.
On that Ford truck, Thunderbird?
Believe says, what do you call it when you taste an inmate? Chaka Khan. Dean says, oh, you offer us a nice tasty fish. Very good. Very good says, and Steven and Dean and everyone.
I'm yawning. No, I'm not yawning. You're yawning. Steven, the last editions were made in mid 2003, just like when this one was made. But they VIN'd them 2004 models. They were the only 2004s that were made and sold as 2004s.
And says, just put a Mexican Coke in the fridge for sea flight tomorrow.
Good. I'm going to have one right now. What did Mark say?
Mark says, la lechuza hace shush. Hagamos silencio como la lechuza que hace shush. That's a school thing.
You found that somewhere.
Josh Holmes is 2003. Steven says, so when were the last edition of Volkswagens made?
Just answer that.
Sorry, Dan says making specs. Then says a power spectral density waveform that cuts off light broadcast. Chevrolet says, I might try to paint it myself. What's the worst that can happen?
It comes out looking like something that I painted.
Dean says, I'm not yawning. You're the one that says I'm yawning. Simandra says, oh, okay. Dan says, I'm kind of like a,
I'd kind of like.
kind of like a 2003 bug.
Too bad they can't be imported right now. I can get you a 2001 model. Same exact thing.
Bob the Campos says, weird. Fairlane sedan.
It's a two-door sedan. Yes.
Chris says, just bullet. I painted my Beetle myself in the garage. With proper prep and knowledge, you can do a good job at home. I think it's taking a job at you.
No.
Barracuda says,
I painted the white Plymouth Savoy. Everybody thinks it looks nice.
Barracuda says, I had a nice tasty piece of rig and chips last night. What's rig? Mark says, looking up Mexican lullabies.
I don't need that, Mark. We're tired enough. But I can't sleep.
Bode Caravana says, I like Mexican Sprite. It's good. Thunderbird says, I love fish and chips. Now I'm hungry, Barry. Dean says, Lester, the tildes are under the search shotgun noise algorithm.
That's interesting.
Strawberry says, I have sprayed thousands of gallons of paint driveway.
Okay, guys. I think we're going to get out of here.
Ow!
She deserved it. Everybody does. She deserved it. She started it.
I didn't do it so hard.
She's flicking me.
So
stop flicking me.
No.
Yes.
No.
And this is the side that already hurts.
And how do I know?
So we're going to say goodbye, everybody. We're going to be on tomorrow night vertically. See if we can get any new people in there. Get some new followers, subs, watch hours. Because I'm only 600 hours. I'm only 600 hours from being able to, do the, not the ads, but the super chats and stuff like that. So we're getting close. We're getting really close. We need to get some new blood in here. I just don't know who's going to be we're going to need a moderator tomorrow night because some weird people come in and that kind of thing.
Steven, make sure you're on all messages on live chat so you can see all of the messages. When you switch from my account to the other, if you're doing it on the same device, it might reset the chat. So that's why you're not seeing them. Yeah. You're not, because it resets to top chat. Believe says thank you. Bergula says rig is a type of shark. Thunderbird says peace, everyone.
Yes, you are Thunderbird. You're new blood. But when we do the live vertical, they put it out on the shorts feed, so people they'll see the cars. Maybe they'll come in and, hey, what's this? People are showing interesting looking cars. So we'll see what happens.
Bob the Campo will be live in less than 4 hours.
Yes, I saw that. Hopefully, I'll be awake for that, Buff. And Kim will be working in the shop.
Fernando, stop trying to swear.
He's not. He says, see you later.
Liar.
That's what it is. See you later.
Liar. Trevor said, YouTube has declared some of U.S. enemies of the state.
Yep.
Dean says, then you need a suitable weird moderator squad.
Yeah, so we don't have a moderator because Jay didn't pop in here. It's too late for him because he's in New York. So we're going to need to designate a moderator for tomorrow night. We'll see who pops in. So good night, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow if you I don't know what time. I'm going to put the thumbnail up, and I don't know what time it is because you guys are changing clocks. So it's going to be different for you, same time for me, but different time for you. So look for whatever hour it is where you are. Okay? Good night, everybody.
Buenas noches. Gracias por venir.